eat human flesh. They are native to the northern forests of the Atlantic coast and the Great Lake regions of both the United States and Canada. Wendigos are mostly thought of evil, malevolent, cannibalistic, and supernatural creatures. Many old Native American tribes describe the Wendigos to generally have glowing eyes, long yellowed fangs, and overly long tongues. Most have swollen yellowish skin, but others said to have a mantle with hair. They are tall, lanky, and are driven by a horrible hunger. According to some Native American tribes, humans who turn into Wendigos when they resort to cannibalism to survive. As it's not that common nowadays, but in the past, when hunters would get caught outside during a snowstorm and lose their way, they would have to eat another person just to survive. And if the legend is true, they would then turn into a Wendigo. So, to give you an idea of what I mean, I found a Reddit Wendigo story. Link in the description if you want to read it yourself. When I was young, I often spent parts of my summers with my grandmother in her home in the country. It was my favorite place in the world, and I always looked forward to the week-long stays at Granny, baking late-night fires with morns and ghost stories, and enjoying having my grandmother all to myself. There was a pond not far from her house where I could sometimes go to swim. It was home to quite a few frogs, and at night they made the most intense noises. I complained to my grandmother only once, saying I couldn't enjoy the night breeze with all that racket. She looked at me on her lap and told me the story about the old man and woman who lived near a lake. The old man couldn't stand the singing of the frogs, but his wife told him it kept the Wendigo away, and to harm them would be unwise. Well, he didn't listen. He set off a mythology catching all the frogs in the lake. It was a process that took some long, but he did it non-stop until he rid the lake of those pesky amphibians. The night without the protection of the frogs, he and his wife were slaughtered by a Wendigo, a vicious whip-like demon creature with elongated fingers, ending in razor-sharp talons, a row of silver teeth as thin and keen needles. I wrote this off as another one of her ghost stories. Then she seemed more serious than usual about it. I never complained about the frogs again, mostly because I grew to enjoy them and put the story in the back of my mind. And in fact, I'd forgotten about it until it came up in the past spring in a Native American literature class I was taking in college. The mention of the Wendigo sparked that old memory of my grandmother's story. I thought that she had made up the word. I didn't realize that there were stories about it, originating in Algonquin legends. Eager to connect something from my childhood to the topic, I googled it, only to find that my grandmother had apparently been mistaken. There was nothing I could find about the stories she had told me, nor any references to frogs providing protection from Wendigos. In fact, the Wendigo's legend seemed very little like my grandmother's version. They are said to be instable, craving human flesh, and sometimes created from the forms of people who had resorted to cannibalism to survive. Descriptions varied, but they sounded almost nothing like my grandmother's boogeyman version. I actually checked as I read, and almost a bit embarrassed by how badly my grandmother messed up on the original tale. I changed residences this summer, moving to a newly built 1,000 square foot on each side duplex on the edge of town. The other side was to be occupied by my landlady, who had the place built. However, she isn't scheduled to move for the rest of her stuff and beginning living there for a couple weeks. She waited for her lease to end, even though my new place was only a few minutes from the town, it felt like more isolated. I enjoyed the seclusion of my home and its proximity to a more natural setting. I'm surrounded by woods, and my patio can't even see a pond beyond the careful landscape lawn, which is carved from the surrounding woodlands. Just like the pond near my grandmother's house, the frogs have put up a furious racket. Lately, I prefer not to pay for my air conditioning if I can help it. So every window is open to catch bees. That means I hear them as clearly as if I was standing on the water's edge. It took a few days to get used to the noise, but now I'm fine. Just like I was the summer when I was young. In fact, the noise has been comforting me during the stress of moving. The night is different. I find myself standing in my living room where we're staring at the pond, though I can see it in the dark. The air is eerie, still, and oppressively warm, but all my windows are shut and I feel impossibly cold. I had long since convinced myself that my grandma's stories had been silly tale and twisting an old legend by a reverted storyteller. But for some reason, I have almost overwhelming sense of dread growing in the pit of my stomach. I don't know what to do. I'm trapped. Leaving my house means braving the darkness beyond my home, but I don't know if I'm going to be safe here either. The frogs have stopped singing.